Strap in, we got a long mother video today. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, sending out a lot of love. Are you ready for the conspiracy theory Iceberg explained by Wendigoon part 7? My voice is still absolutely wrecked, but it's okay. So yeah, what am I missing? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, sending out a lot of love. Subscribe if you want to be a founder. Psh, let's get on with these conspiracies. Also, don't worry, guys, I'm not burnt out of them. That one I recorded before, it was just, I just really had nothing to say. And also, I feel like as the tiers go higher up, I don't really know what I can comment on and what I can't comment on when it comes to the whole conspiracies. Don't want to say anything wrong, but I guess I'll just follow Wendigoon's lead, if that makes sense. But strap in, let's go. We got a super long video. Let's do it.
Hey everybody,
Let's just naturally flow with it.
and welcome to the first part of Tier 7 of the...
I just realized because my mouse went over here. Look at the little Easter egg about the AI in the box. Was this from the last one where it was like the AI that tried to get someone to free it, but it couldn't directly tell you to let him out or ask you to just let him out, but it had to trick you into letting it out? I like how, look at the Wendigo. That's cool how he's got that there. That's sick. Infallible. Smokeless shotgun powder. Hercules powder. Go. What?
Conspiracy theory Iceberg. Guys, I have no idea what's going on. I was at 10k subs whenever I made the childhood trauma video, which was like 2 or 3 videos ago, and I'm at like 65,000 now. I'm so thankful. I'm so blessed. I have no idea what I did or did wrong, I guess, to deserve it, because like,
bro, you followed your passion. Great for you, bro. You followed your passion. And it must be actually aligned with who you are, and I think he deserves. I think everybody deserves what's coming to them. Just living in
the disturbing movie
sick.
Iceberg is almost to 1 million views, which I can't even process that. And then my subscribers are shooting up, and then like YouTubers I've watched forever are like DMing me and saying good job, and it's a lot. I appreciate it so much. And I sincerely do mean it to everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my subscribers, my patrons, everyone. I really am humbled. And it's all thanks to you all. I couldn't do it without you. So sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching. Before we get into this, there's one thing I need to clear up. So in the disturbing movie Iceberg near the end, I said that things near the bottom were illegal and should not be looked up. I should have clarified on it, and it's my bad for not doing so. That didn't mean that everything on the bottom tiers was illegal, just the ones containing the cheese pizza stuff and actual videos made for the purpose of being a murder movie. What that means is all of the mixtape films that were just collections from Live Leak and like clipped newsroom footage and stuff like that, those are entirely fine to watch. You can look those up online wherever. The reason I have to say that is because some YouTubers who covered those mixtape films have been receiving criticism and backlash from people who apparently watched my video and then went over to theirs and assumed that they were watching something they shouldn't be and started berating them in the comments, which actually led to someone apparently taking their video down. Specifically, this was my guy, Brutality Will Rule 666, who he said he took the video down for other reasons, and he's a really cool dude. Nothing that he was watching or doing was illegal. In fact, I'm going to link his channel in the description below.
Looks like I have to go watch the creepy movie tier list or whatever that thing is. What is it? He said what is it? I want to see that. But this guy's channel. What? His channel doesn't exist? Maybe the name changed, but I kind of want to see that video he's talking about, like the one that talked about the movies.
Because he's a really cool guy. He does cool movie reviews, so I encourage you to check him out. But do not go from that disturbing movie video, and I'm so happy for how it's doing, but do not go from that to other people's and criticize them for watching certain movies, because if someone's on YouTube explaining that they own a copy and describing what's in it, it's probably not illegal. And only some of them on that bottom tier were illegal to even watch, at least in the United States. So please be nice. Again, thank you so much for getting that video to where it's at. It means the most. But just don't like berate other people on YouTube because like they don't deserve it and they didn't do anything to deserve it. So thank you for that. It means a lot. We are going to go ahead and get into it. But as I said at the beginning, guys, I'm overwhelmed. It means the most how much like has been done with the channel and everything, and just thank you all so much. And one last time before we get started, thank you for watching. Tier 7 is described as the interdimensional monk, and the description reads, the interdimensional monk sees the whole picture and is able to discern reality from unreality. Because of their nature, the mixture of entries around this tier is a really varied one and very difficult to comprehend.
I'm just gonna look through them real quick and then we're gonna continue. I don't know if I want to say any of the names because I don't know if any of the names are what the heck is that? What? I looked one up immediately. Let me look up the. Let me just look. What? Oh, the Akashic Records is on here? Okay, I referenced that a lot in my videos. Well, in old videos. Whoa, Anunnaki puppet show. Whoa. There's a lot on here, bruh. Whoa. Okay, I'm just gonna...
Aztec theogony refers to the theological legend of the Aztec people. This is going to come up a few times in this tier, but I'm about to condense hundreds of years of religion and culture into like 1 or 2 minutes. So if I skip over stuff or am not describing it all the way, it's really hard to, so bear with me. This can differ heavily from province to province, especially because in Aztec culture things weren't recorded or passed around that much. But the basics of their theological history go like this. A primary god and goddess lived in heaven, to which the goddess cast down a knife that cut open the earth. When the knife was cast down, 1,600 fallen gods came to earth and essentially became evil spirits. During this time, they called down a great flood, which wiped out the life that was on earth before them. And after these fallen gods were not allowed back into heaven, someone named Axolotl went to Hades to try to retrieve a bone that could be brought out of Hades and used to grant the fallen gods power. But while retrieving the bone, he dropped it. The bone shattered into an inconceivable amount of pieces, and those pieces
were humanity
into what is now humans.
Humans
began to search.
You could just, it's like, what is that called? Is it called verbatim? Let me see. Verbatim. I've never used that word before. Verbatim. In exactly the same words as were used. Oh, verbatim. I really feel like verbatim fits there. Can I just make it fit there? But just like, it's so easy to see. It's like all things get so like common. But I wonder, were the Aztecs really like sacrificing people? Just like look at like from the image of this guy, like so they had to hold them down. You see what I'm saying? So did they like cut out his heart like while he was alive? What?
Different fallen gods, which is the reason that cultures and tribes were so diverse and spread out, because each one was a different group of people who followed a different fallen god. At this time, the whole world was covered in darkness. So to stop it, one of the gods built a bonfire, said he needed a sacrifice to walk into the fire.
Funny enough, I was just about to say it sounds like Dark Souls.
To which one of the humans did, and that human was transformed into the sun. Again, that was a super short, condensed version of thousands of years of theology, so nah. So how does this relate to all of our conspiracy theories? Well, if you'll notice some of the points in it, there's a lot of through lines that connect this to the beliefs in different religions. Think about it this way. Aztec is about as far as you can get geographically and culturally from the ancient Hebrews or Babylonians or Sumerians or something like that. Yet we still see the themes of fallen gods or angels coming from the heavens, a great flood wiping out the population on Earth, one of these fallen gods or angels going to hell, humanity following these different lesser gods, and then finally one of these followers of the gods being sacrificed for the greater good and then ascending to the heavens.
Okay, so I don't want to get too deep about religion and things of that nature, but I do know that it's all a science. If you pay attention to it, it's all a science, and it's really well crafted and hidden science about bodies of energy, much less actual people in events. But you have to just decode that for yourself. So it's very interesting.
This is actually a common thread seen in a lot of old religions and traditions, and it's interesting to draw the parallels between them to try to figure out where the roots of not only humanity, but maybe belief in existence itself come from. The parrot is on here, I believe, as a cautionary tale. See, the parrot is a sort of hazing thing when it comes to research communities and researchers. The idea being that anytime a new journalist or researcher or scientist or whatever gets into a field that they have to do case studies, there will be a story comes up that's called the parrot story. Think about it. How many times have you seen a story where it's like a parrot stopped home invaders from breaking into a house because it started making noises that sounded like the police? Or a man caught his wife cheating because the parrot started mimicking the guy that she was cheating with, and so on and so forth. These are all either very mundane stories or stories that just didn't happen and are kind of made to fill up dead space. However, they're also viewed as a sort of rite of passage for new people getting into a research field. Something we're going to see a lot with this Iceberg moving forward, especially because a lot of the concepts we're getting into are a lot. There will be more and more things similar to this parrot story. I'll point them out as we get along when I know something is disinfo, but this is a specific example of what disinfo might be. Real Dowsing and dominancy is in reference to Dowsing, which I mentioned all the way in, I think, tier 2. If you'll remember, Dowsing is the trick in which you can hold metal bars or crossed wires and use that to figure out where water wells or spiritual areas are around the earth. Dominancy is very similar. In the most simple version, people in ye olden days would take a stick, place it upright.
Ye olden days. The parrot thing was interesting, but I don't really have a comment on the parrot thing, but the real...
let it fall, and whichever direction it fell, that would be the one they were to travel in. This was also used to make decisions. In other words, you could say fall right for yes, left for no. And it's even cited in things like the Bible as Nebuchadnezzar using dominancy as a way to make his decisions. What's interesting is, especially in biblical text and text at the same time, there's mention of dominancy and things similar to dowsing as a form of divination, which is essentially witchcraft. Historically, people who have done either as a means of determining where to put in a water vein or traveling in whatever direction, have used witchcraft or black magic familiar spirits as a means of utilizing this technique. Not only that, but there's a case to be made in historical records for people who did dowsing professionally or for others always becoming ill and with some sickness, implying that maybe something they were working with in order to do the dowsing proved to be harmful, if this really is a black magic, maybe they're just suffering the long-term effects of it. Faust nonfiction is in reference to the very famous play.
Whoa, that's... Oof. Imagine. It's like the black magic or witchcraft that they're using is actually sucking away their life force. It's like those things in games where you... like if you're like a... I don't know if necromancer type classes have to do that. They have to sacrifice a piece of their life force to do a certain spell or raise a certain amount of the dead, but...
Faust. The original inspiration for the story Faust came from a man named Johann Faust. He was an alchemist and a necromancer, which, if you've been watching the Iceberg...
Look at the synchronicity of that. He was a what? Say it again.
Johann Faust. He was an alchemist and a necromancer, which, if you've been watching the Iceberg to this point, you know are risky business. And according to the belief of many at the time, he himself made a deal with the devil in order to obtain the abilities of alchemy and necromancy. This inspired the Marlowe play known as The Tragical History of the Life and Death of Dr. Faustus. Here's what's interesting. At the exact same time in Poland, a story known as the Legend of Pan Twardowski was picking up a lot of steam because there was legends in that region of people making deals with the devils and then being taken to hell for it. Now, the story didn't get as famous as it is today until a man named Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, wow,
Johann Wolfgang von Goethe
made the poem Faust that was later adapted into the Great Play. However, all of these corresponding legends came together and was about the same story of a man who met the devil at a crossroads and gave his soul to the devil so he could take instant gratification over long-term gratification. This story inspired works like Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. However, when you look into some of the more supernatural tales of it, like Tommy Johnson and Robert Johnson, American blues singers who were supposedly part of a crossroad deal in which they sold their soul to the devil in order to play music, and records dating back further and further, it seems that the legend of Faust didn't just come from a place of fiction, but experiences that were shared by great communities and later became stories. So that all asks the question.
That whole thing is weird to me, and the whole selling your soul thing, right? Because I still think it's defined by you. Because you know how like certain people say, oh, don't sign to a label, like a music label. The artists are like selling their soul, and they literally are like selling their soul. A great artist by the name of B.O.B. talked about it in a lyric. He said when artists say they sold their soul, it's not a metaphor. So like they're selling a part of their soul, but it's like they're selling it to other entities. I don't think it's just... There's a picture that had me weak, and it was a picture of like, I think it was like Jesus or God sitting next to the devil, and the devil was crying, and Jesus or the God asked, why are you crying? I blanked out for a bit. See, that was the devil, but I blanked out for but I was about to say it again, but devil told God, oh, because everybody keeps blaming their problems on me. They keep saying, oh, it's the devil in the details, it's this, and he was crying because everybody, and I think that was one of the funniest, most realistic things about it. It's like every time someone does, I feel like this, like false nonfiction, or Faust in general, or people, like they're selling their souls to a part of themselves. Like they know, it's almost like you know you don't want to do something, but it is weird when certain people gain like supernatural powers out of nowhere, like talents or stuff. But I would say that they're digging into a deeper part of their soul, or a deeper part of knowledge that existed, if we want to get esoteric, in a past life or something like that. But it's definitely not making deals with the devil. It could be a form of witchcraft, or maybe they're making deals with a certain entity that are low vibrational entities that give them a certain thing that, like the one before, robs them of their youth, their life force. But other than that, like, if spirits are controlling you, you got a weak will. Like, seriously. Spirits are supposed to be on your end of the gun, your end of the sword, your end of the staff. They're not supposed to be able to take your life force. I don't know.
Is Faust based on a true story? All right, so hyper sigils is...
And that's another thing I was going to say, too. What if that was, like, saying, like, doing certain things and saying that the person sold their soul was also an excuse? In a way, it was just an excuse to justify some sort of behavior that they did.
Really crazy.
Oh, the devil got into me. I feel like sometimes that shit's an hell of an excuse.
Sigils are traditionally used in magic and witchcraft in order to summon or bind certain spirits. I.e., you could put one up to bring in a demon or angel or entity, or a different kind to make them do your bidding. A hyper sigil, or super sigil as they're sometimes called, are used to completely transform one's own life by slightly recreating it with alterations. What's that mean? Well, the example that's most often used is, say you made a book series about someone that you knew, and the entire book series was so close to that person's livelihood that you could tie the two of them in as the same person. However, when you get to the 5th issue of the book, you begin writing minor alterations to that person's character, saying they're more bossy, or they're more snobby, or whatever personality change you want. That person, because they're now spiritually linked to that book series, would begin acting the way they were being written. What that means is not just individuals.
That's super weird for things like thought transmission and And oh wait, I don't know if we should get that deep into this. Whoa, that's actually crazy.
You know, but people in places of power could be affected by what others say about them, even if they don't mean it to be that way.
Wow.
This all has to do with spiritual connections.
That sounds like also like what happened to Alan in Alan Wake, where the way they viewed him, it didn't actually change him, but it created like a completely separate entity that was like an evil version of him, or how people like the worst aspects of him.
And the greater spiritual world around us. Meaning that if there exists an essence that is close enough to your essence, the two become intertwined, and whatever changes one changes the other. So think about that in our age of technology and social media. Think about everything that you do online to a persona that is essentially you alters you yourself, even if you don't mean it to. The broader implication that we have essentially built millions or billions of hypersigils without knowing it, therefore changing the course of human history, is really cool. Amazon Forest was built, used to be a joke, but now has a lot of weight to it. See, unlike most forest or wooded areas, the Amazon forest is pretty flat. Think about it. If you look at any other wooded area in the world, there's all these hills and elevation changes to it. Whereas the Amazon rainforest is pretty flat and called the Green Inferno for a reason. The reason for this is that the ancient tribes of the area did not do agriculture with standard crops the way we think, but they did it with trees. They would harvest the wood and the sap and the water and the fruits from the trees in the way that we may do corn or something similar. We can see this whenever we look at cities that are located in the rainforest and how around them there is an abundance of biodiversity in the trees and flora of the area, and as you leave the city, it becomes more and more sparse. This implies the existence of garden cities that used to exist as a means of agriculture, and then the trees naturally populated. So there's a very good chance that a lot, if not the majority, of the rainforest was planted by humans thousands and thousands of years ago. Or at least the trees that would go on to create the rainforest. The Gatekeeper's Remorse is a reading list that's been floating around the internet for a few years. See, gatekeepers, whenever we're talking about them in the sense of these conspiracies, means someone who claims to be looking for the truth but is actually just pushing people to the wayside. Think of it this way. Say you have an author who is supposedly trying to look for the secrets of humanity.
The Amazon one, rainforest one, I was trying to think of some stuff to say to that, but that'd be pretty wild if it was built.
And they do that by writing several books about evolution, although the actual way we got here is alien lizards or whatever. So they spend all this time writing books for higher powers as a means of pointing people in the wrong direction. The Gatekeeper's Remorse is implying that several of these authors have had a change of heart, or they felt guilty about it and created a book or a text in order to point people back the right way. Some examples of this include Omphalos by Philip Gossa, which is a book in which someone talking about the beginning of the world says perhaps the earth was just made old. In other words, the universe and our planet isn't as old as we think it is. Or The Beginning Was the End by Oscar Mayer, in which Oscar says that the way that we got here as humans is that we used to be apes, and then we could figure it out that we eat other apes, and then when we did that, we stole their brain functions and became higher order species. Yeah. Here's the reading list if you're interested in any of those or think any of them might sound cool, because there's some really weird stuff in here. Broder's engine is essentially a schematic for an infinite energy machine.
I knew it. I was going to say that. As soon as I hear something about an engine, I'm like, okay, if it's on a conspiracy list, it must be like an infinite something.
Valuable metal like copper, and then make it in a coil around a magnet. Whenever you push the magnet through, it causes the electrons inside of the copper to shift. Whenever electrons shift, that creates electricity. So if we've got one coil and one magnet and we do that, we get a bit of electricity. Cool. But what happens if we take 1,000 of them? We all line them up directly in an order, to which whenever the magnet is moved, that causes an electron exchange, which therefore causes power. What if we put them all on a giant sort of lever that gently rocks back and forth, and the way that we power that is we just put a few of these copper magnet combinations at the bottom to power the mechanism that makes all the other magnets move. Say we build enough of these to fill up an entire warehouse, and yada yada, you could follow to the point that you could power a whole city through perpetual energy. While this has worked in closed experiments, the whole idea is we can't do it because big oil and evil electricity companies and all that good stuff. In 2009, 28-year-old Shania Asom suffered an asthma.
That's another thing. One sec. Okay, we continue. About the Brothers engine is cool. But yeah.
Attack while she was in Memphis, Tennessee. She went to the doctor, got a steroids injection, and went home, and everything seemed fine until she started to itch all over her body. She soon started developing scabs all over her skin, her legs began to darken, and the doctors couldn't figure out what the condition was, although they expected staph or some other common skin infection. However, despite all of their efforts, they couldn't make the infection go away, and after traveling to a dermatologist, it was determined that Shania had a since unknown disease. For a reason that to this day no one can explain, every hair follicle on her skin is producing about 12 times the amount of skin that it's supposed to. This causes extreme callousing everywhere on her body that hair is supposed to be, creating an effect where it seems as if her hair follicles are growing skin so dense it's similar to a nail. And to this day, doctors have absolutely no clue what it is. They're continuing doing tests, trying to figure out the causation, but as far as they know, her hair follicles are just overproducing skin, and they're none the wiser to it. There's some stuff I cannot talk about on YouTube.
Knew that was going to be one of them.
There it is, and the theory says that they are aliens, because of course it does, and that another alien race makes them be essentially the prison wardens of this prison planet. So, cool. Appendix Monkey Tail is saying that perhaps our appendix operates in the same way our monkey tail would. It's believed that our tailbone is a product of what is now called a vestigial organ, or in other words, an organ that we needed at some point in the past that we outgrew in the modern day, meaning that our tailbone used to be where a tail was attached, but now that we don't have a tail, the tailbone's kind of useless. It's now been determined that perhaps the appendix was used as a sort of digestive reboot, as a means of completely flushing the body system if it were to be too backed up by plant matter or bones or something that would be otherwise undigestible. But since we haven't eaten those things in so many years, we've slowly lost the use of it. So again, much like our tailbone, it's something that's just there because we used to need it and now we don't, and it kind of just takes up space. This is what I get for doing the disturbing movie Iceberg.
That's what I heard too, actually, about the appendix. But that was the one I looked up. I was like, what the fuck is the appendix monkey tail? But I get it. So it was compared to the monkey tail. Concrete enemas?
Like, there's going to be one of these horrible things in every video I do from this point on. So, cool. All right, so you see the word. It's there, right? So, according to this theory, that is used as a rite of passage in several secret societies. The reason for this is that an unholy amount of people report to the emergency room every year with this, because they use the concrete to perform that action and then they get stuck. But it's at such an alarming rate that people believe cults are responsible, or doing it as some horrible satanic rite of passage or whatever. It's just trying to explain why people are the way that they are. The dog suicide bridge is in reference to the Overtoun Bridge in Milton, Scotland. Ever since the 1960s, an absurd amount of dogs have leaped to their death from this bridge. Keep in mind, this isn't a small bridge at all. It's 50 feet off the ground, and it doesn't really make sense for dogs, an animal that seemingly never commits suicide, to just jump off at such a given rate. It's so bad that dogs walking beneath the bridge will climb to the top just to jump off, and dogs that have jumped, survived, will limp their way back up to the top just to jump again. The primary theory that scientists...
Why? And I actually heard of this one. I feel like a lot of people heard of this one. The other one I had to cut short because I didn't know you couldn't say it. Well, he didn't say it. The concrete one.
Have had around the area is that perhaps there are several minks nesting, and them marking their scent makes the dogs go for it, which sure would make sense, but that doesn't explain why dogs that are already down there around where the mink would climb to the top just to jump, or especially why a dog would jump, climb back up, then jump again. True. Especially since, according to legend, this has been going on since the 1960s. Many believe this to be a demonic or spiritual site in which spirits or the supernatural overwhelms these dogs to commit suicide from the bridge. I should also mention that in research for this, I found a story of in 1994, a man killed his newborn son on the bridge, and then attempted to kill himself. While the stories go that dogs have been doing this on the bridge since the 1960s, the first official reported cases of dogs jumping off began shortly thereafter. Just food for thought. Pro-war Buddhism is the fact that throughout history there have been different cases of Buddhism.
Oh my gosh, a Buddhist monk rocking the AK. Oh.
Becoming pro-war or pro-defense in order to protect themselves. Buddhists are traditionally known as very hardcore pacifists all the way into the face of death, or at least the traditional Buddhist monks are. While it's well known that in South Vietnam around 1963, whenever there was heavy Buddhist oppression occurring in the area, Buddhists began to make very open protest and shut down roadways in response to the killing of Buddhists that was happening under the Vietnamese regime. What is lesser known is some of the more modern instances. I also want to emphasize I'm not saying anything about overarching religion or like specific ins and outs of religious beliefs in certain areas or Thailand. I am again describing a very complex situation in a couple minutes, so again, bear with me. In Thailand in 2004, several Buddhist monks were attacked and killed by Muslim attackers. In response to this, several of these Buddhist monks began to arm themselves. Now, traditionally in Buddhist beliefs, this is completely shunned. However, there were interesting ways that they worked around it. For example, as you can imagine, a Buddhist monk cannot be a member of the military. However, the Thai military began these suspended enlistment programs in which you could kind of be part of the military, but not really part of the military. So the sort of in the military people became traditional monks in order to protect other monks that existed in the Thai region. One of the stories I was reading was an interviewer who was speaking with one of these monks in 2006, and they asked the monk if it was true that some of the monks were arming themselves, and the monk lifted up his robe, pulled out a handgun, put it back, and they just continued the interview. It's a very interesting example of how far even the most peaceful people will go if they're pushed, or as the saying says, even a worm will turn. The Akashic Records put forward by psychic Edgar Casey.
That's why it's about. Okay, I'm not gonna. The Akashic Records is something I mention a lot. The Akashic Records is something you could tap into with enough practice of meditation. You can tap into past lives. It's basically like a library of every human event that has ever happened to the end of time and back and forward and all that great stuff, at least if I'm explaining it in my chaotic way.
Is a means of better understanding psychicness itself. According to Casey, whenever he would conduct psychic links with people, he would for one connect to them, but the second connection would be to something that he called the Book of Life. He describes this as a sort of cloud storage that exists all around us and everywhere at the same time. It contains the memories, thoughts, actions, and beliefs of every human that has ever existed. According to Casey, we are all connected through this superlink, and possible memories or glimpses and even dreams that we have at any given point can either be from another human who's experienced them or a combination of all the different brain patterns mixing with ours at the same time. Cloud farming or cloud seeding is exactly what it says. Throughout history, there have been cases of governments purposefully farming clouds in order to get whatever agricultural benefit they want. This is done by planes depositing chemicals into the air that encourage precipitation. The most common is like potassium iodes or even dry ice being used in order to begin to form ice crystals and therefore create snow. However, historically, sometimes things like silver iodes have been used, which aren't good for people to, like breathe in or drink or something like that. See, the thing with it is, this isn't necessarily creating rain clouds. It's just a way to encourage rain cloud formation. So if you know that rain clouds are about to form, you can deposit them into an area in order to speed it up and move the direction the cloud will travel. This has led to countries like China having their neighbors accuse them of literally stealing the rain so that China can have better agriculture and crops than they do. Limbic brain is often used as an excuse of why some people do the things that they do. See, whenever we're comfortable, happy, and accepted in a situation, we operate using our prefrontal cortex. This is a part of the brain most commonly associated with reason and complex thought patterns. However, setting just below and behind our prefrontal cortex is something that's often called the limbic brain. This is our system that derives on emotion and instinct. Whenever we're operating off of it, we're much more manic and reactive and emotional whenever we're put into a situation. This isn't only the fight or flight response that you may be familiar with, but also things like heartbreak or loneliness, and how we kind of rely on our emotional state rather than our logical state. Obviously, this isn't a state of mind that you want to keep up for any amount of time.
Yeah.
So putting it short term, whenever you're happy, part of a group, and content, you are thinking logically, and whenever you're alone, depressed, and unsure of your purpose in life, you're thinking emotionally. This is kind of obvious, but where it matters is in its sociology implications. Part of the reason that people may do evil things is simply because they do not want to be reverted to their limbic brain and have to interact on their own. Or in other words, people don't want to be alone, so they will do things that may be morally reprehensible in order to fit in. Emergency broadcast neuralizers is referencing the sounds that are heard at the beginning of an emergency broadcast. See, the concept of a neuralizer is that it homes in on specific brain waves or syncs out brain waves
I can see that.
in order to manipulate memory or thought patterns or something like that. The thought is emergency.
It's funny that they're just like, it's funny when like things like this are just like emergency broadcast neuralizers, when it's like, yo, television is literally called TV, like television programming. Some people even say the whole tell lies to your vision programming. You know, you see it. Or like television programming in general is already letting out frequencies that alter your brainwaves and patterns, especially people who are like, don't separate things from entertainment and literally waste their time watching TV. Like a lot of our parents, sad to say, like definitely my mom is one of them who will watch these really drama filled shows. And funny enough, like the thing for what I know, for what I feel, which is common with younger, like my generation of people who went through it, kind of like if you had a lot of psychological and just fucked up trauma in your family and fights and shit like that, you tend to stay away from shows like that. That's what this made me think about, the whole television programming thing. But it's like so weird, like to each their own, of course, but she watches that in like bulk at times, and it's just like repeating the same messages of fights and just following these. Like, it's the weirdest shit. It's like really weird. Like, I remember a comment saying when you step back and really like observe, reality gets weird, man. Let me not even go. I'm going into, see, this will take me off into a whole different path. But you think emergency broadcasts, like frequencies that they play in the beginning, are the only thing programming? Yes, hell.
Broadcasts are used to either forcefully calm you, alter your memory, or change your perception of events around you.
Shit,
basically,
shows
emergency
in general.
broadcast systems are used as a means of forced complacency on the population. This is another one of those misinfo ones. However, it's at least a fun misinfo one. There is an entire chart, huge theory to this thing, which I will.
If he said misinfo about other ones, I've maybe caught it here and there, but this is like genuinely one of the times I actually heard him say this one is misinfo.
Link in the description about how The Simpsons is actually real footage taken through a wormhole of another United States government that radioactively hurt the people, and blah 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 blah, weird hokey pokey science stuff. However, this is an example of misinfo because this is put on the list, as I've mentioned before, and with the parrot as a means of subverting wandering eyes. Because once again, think about it this way: if there's stuff down here that matters, and if there's stuff down here that could be serious that you don't want other people to see, whenever they look at a list that says something along the lines of The Simpsons is real footage, they go, oh, okay, it's just more weird hoax, lizard alien people stuff. So, as mentioned before, this is a parrot. Roman metaphysics takes heavy inspiration from Greek metaphysics, or what is essentially the study of what's real.
Of course.
See, ancient Greeks philosophers were constantly looking for ways to better describe life or to describe the world around us. Metaphysics was an attempt to define what is real or what can be determined in the real world. There were two primary competing philosophies within ancient Greek, one of which being that we must always rely on our senses to determine what's real in a world that's ever changing, or that we must always rely on logical reasoning because our senses can lie to us in this changing world. Plato best described it as this: say that we have a chair, and we all understand what a chair means.
Yeah.
Well, if we exclusively use our senses to tell us what a chair is, and we only know what one kind of chair looks like, does that mean a chair can only be what we think it should look like, or can there exist different forms of chairs? On the other side, We can't always just be logical or use reasoning to determine it, because say we do something arbitrary like, oh, well, a chair has 4 legs and you can sit on it. That means a cow, a horse, and big dogs are also just forms of chairs. This led Plato and later Aristotle to develop the idea that they refer to as hylomorphism. This is the core concept of the idea that there are forms in matter, and that despite changes, there must always be some constant, even if we're not aware of it. Put most simply, it's a roundabout way of saying that a chair can look like a ton of different things, but we know what a chair is, so that's still a chair, which means it's got to have something in common with every other chair that exists, even if they don't look anything alike. A lot of this metaphysics gets into ideas of how it applies to people. For example, Aristotle said that despite he did not exist beforehand, his form and matter was still created into the creature that is now known as Aristotle. Therefore, there has to be through lines, even if unseen, that connect whatever present self exists to the past and future self. What's so interesting is that despite being written in ancient Greek times and then adapted into Roman times, these are basically the modern principles that we use for theoretical physics.
Yes.
Things have to...
Because it all repeats itself. Nothing is new under the sun. It's all knowledge repeating itself. It goes back to the Dogon tribe and how it's like, oh, how did the Dogon tribe know what they knew? Bro, because it's all repeating itself. I'm telling you.
To have constants in order to be understood as they apply to a greater world that we know not of, and how these connections can be manipulated. It's so interesting that all the way back then they were unintentionally, or possibly intentionally, laying the groundwork for the greater universe as we see it today. Prison Earth refers to the idea that we exist on an earthly prison. Think of it this way. Throughout all of human history, there has
some people believe it's either a prison planet, and some believe that it's a prism planet. Okay, wait. I did that stupid. Some believe it's a prism, Prism, prism planet, and that's why it says it's similar to prison, because your light is trapped down here. Like you were a piece of light, which would be God or heaven or whatever, the universe, whatever being, you know, the source, and you fell down here, which would indicate that this is, you know, okay. We're going to get really deep, but like carbon, I could go, just follow me for a second. But there's two things. So your light is trapped down here, that light of your soul. You come to experience all this darkness to refine that light and try to get back to source. So the only way of getting out the prison is mastering yourself, which is why the Egyptians had know thyself in like every fucking temple, because the self-mastery is really the only thing at the end of the day. If you really think about it, the only thing that matters. Just think about that for a second, because like everything you do outside your external reality is really an extension of yourself, and everything on the outside of you is also an extension of yourself. We're gonna get deep anyways, but yeah, my whole point is there people think it's a prism planet or a school, and I guess your reality shifts based on what you think. It's a school to come and learn all this trauma and debaucherous things that go on here, to never have to go through it again and you leave. I don't know. Some people think it's the divine matrix, or also that some people think it's a prison planet, which I want to see what the theory has for
always been a need and a struggle for something. On the grand scale, it's been order, resources, agriculture, or in the modern day of power and wealth, all the way down to the individual fighting for personal recognition, or even just the ability to breathe and take in food. Now, of course, this is all we know of life to be, and it's hard to imagine a life without it, but perhaps this constant need for something implies that we are supposed to exist in a realm of pure ecstasy, or a realm of pure not need.
Even though the astral plane is still connected here, that would technically be your dreams. But even in your dreams, like once you read things like, I wish I had the book near me to say it, but
thrive, that's the word. A place where we thrive instead of survive. Yeah. So that's like the philosophy side of it. Here's the creepy moon part. A lot of these theories say that the moon itself was constructed. Examples being, geological samples have said that the moon is older than the Earth. Craters on the moon have been identified as depressions. In other words, they have been sucked in from within the moon. The prevailing theory behind this is that the moon itself is hollow. hollow moon theory, or at least whatever structure is inside of it is allowing this extra space to cave in. There is a completely abnormal amount of titanium on the surface of the moon, and several seismic activities have been reported on the surface of the moon despite nothing causing them. In other words, whatever's doing it had to come from the inside, leading to the belief that many of this prison Earth theory have, that the moon itself was made as an observatory to watch us from, and is essentially acting as our giant warden, making sure that we don't get too far from the Earth. And then you can tie this in and say that with the Mars bunker.
It's so crazy because you want to know something that's weird? Me and my what people used to call us the twins. Me and my bro, oh frick Stormcloak. Now that's what I changed his name to in my phone now. But me and my bro Ron, we walked into a gas station near where like he still lives, but it's okay if I say his name. Don't worry. When neither of us are gonna die, it's not that insane. I don't have to have any crazy anonymity. I also think I said it in the video when he was in the collab videos. But my bro Ron, listen to this. Hold on. I just had a pause. Because I just thought about how weird that moment was. What the hell? It was literally out of the blue. We went to a gas station, and there was this, like, cool dude just working there, I guess. Cool old man, just, you know, getting his things done, right? But when we bought what we bought, I can't remember if it was Arizona's, drinks, or whatever we did. We went to leave the store. And as we left the store, though, like it wasn't even like we were talking to him and everything, didn't have like picture like how I'm dressed now, like this. I got my, you know, pirate shirt on, looking kind of fly, got this, you know, comfortable. I was wearing stuff like this, so there's no way I was hiding stuff, so this wasn't like what he was referring to. But the guy goes, "Hey guys," or "Hey fellas," whatever he said. He said, "Remember." And he points up to the sky, not like a camera on the wall. That's why I say don't think he's referring to the camera as in Big Brother. But that's what he says. Big Brother is always watching. Be careful. Like, take care of yourselves. And me and me and Ron look at each other like, what the hell? And we left. And just like, I think we looked up at the sky at that point because that's how it looked like he pointed. Like, it wasn't a camera or, like, you know, I was trying to basically say, he wasn't saying, like, two black dudes walking in the store and stole anything. But pretty much, yeah, we walked out and we looked up, and I was like, and that made me think about what he was saying about the moon. In that instance, I still can't explain that. That was one of those moments where it was like the comment I mentioned earlier. You take a step back from reality, and it just gets even weirder the more you try. The more you just observe things going on, it gets weirder. And I feel like us who can have that awareness and see that are literally blessed, because like most of the things we see go on can't even be explained. Or like, I don't know. Like, there's just certain events, man. But that was a weird event for me.
Theory that was our prison before, and then we got sent to this one. And if we ever try to go past the realm of the moon, we'll get shot down or something like that. And that's what the 9 minutes of the missing Apollo 11 mission was, and it's all connected. Or just go with the theory that the moon is a giant space monster egg that's going to break out and kill us all. I like that one.
I like that one.
Inorganic beings implies the existence of non-carbon life, but not only non-carbon, non-physical. See, this is hard for us to even imagine because everything of our understanding of life exists in the physical or things that interact with the physical, like ghosts or spirits. Think about something that doesn't even exist on the same plane of dimension of us, but does take up the same space. If these things are entirely spiritual or aura-based creatures, then perhaps what they feed on, in the same way we feed on other organic materials, is auras and spirituality itself. You can run a lot of cool theories with this and say that...
Please tell me that was just an update. Why did like my console just pop up? That happened in another video, and I swear it happened in these videos, the conspiracy theory iceberg. Listen, government, I'm not trying to do anything. Leave me alone, please. I'm just trying to exist. No, I'm not scared, but what was that? That was super weird. I don't like when things happen like that. That was creepy. If you guys just saw the console pop up or the command prompt pop up, and just, I almost said framped for some reason from Dark Souls. But let me go back
Perhaps
to this, 'cause
haunted
that
spirituality
threw me off.
itself.
That was
You
a
can run
distraction. See, that was distortion right there.
a lot of cool theories with this, and say that perhaps haunted locations are just these things' feeding ground. And whenever people go there and experience fear, that energy they're giving off through fear provides food for these creatures.
So Archons. Not gonna say too much about it because I don't know how much you can talk about Archons in the video, but basically Archons. So the bridge would be one of those locations.
You can go even further with that and say perhaps UFO sightings or monster sightings and things like that are mind alterations made on people from these non-organic creatures as a means of maintaining energy. So don't worry, it's not a monster under your bed. It's just a super fourth dimensional spiritual being that is creating fear within your body in order to harvest your energy. So nothing to be afraid of.
Oh, this is one of those? Oh, because the picture is... I'm pretty sure you guys know what the picture is, what that picture is from. We should all know what that's from. The good old sleep experience. Okay, losing English. It's because of this. I'm trying to just... I seen a knot in my headphones, and I think I'm getting literally thrown off task, but I had to unknot the headphones. Okay, we're good. I'm done.
Deprivation lifestyle refers to what happens if someone undergoes long-term sleep deprivation. As we know, without sleep for long periods of time, people begin to lose cognitive and social functions. However, there are theories that if someone goes a really long time on the amount of sleep deprivation, they will lose functions such as consciousness. There's been a lot of cool theories proposed with this one, that's what allows the id of our brain to take over, or our more primal self.
I haven't heard the id forever.
Perhaps certain spirits or things that exist within this world can inhabit our bodies if we allow that consciousness to be so worn away. I talked about the Russian sleep experiment in like tier 1 or 2 of this iceberg. So imagine this as the practical version to carry out that. Dinosaurs helped build the pyramids. Whenever I saw the conspiracy theory iceberg and wanted to do a video on it, this is what I was hoping for. A lot less depression, a lot more dinosaur.
A lot more
Discovered
dinosaur.
A few kilometers from the Great Pyramids of Egypt, lesser pyramids have been found that contain papyri that have some interesting transcriptions on them. In these papyri, it talks about giant beast, or god beast as they're called, were used in order to build the pyramids. It says things like they carried the limestone across the rivers and were used to haul the large weighing rocks that were used in order to construct the pyramid. In these transcriptions, whoever wrote them said that they ate the grass of the Nile plains, that their tail was large enough that a swing could kill a whole army, that their neck reached to the clouds, and even contained several inscriptions and images of the supposed creatures. While things like this have always been referenced in, say, Job, that dinosaurs existed much closer to humans than we think, now several Egyptologists, which I didn't know was a thing before researching this, some of them have gotten on board with this and said, yeah, perhaps the pyramids were built with the assistance of dinosaurs, which is the nicest thing I think I've said in this entire iceberg.
Yes, Egyptologists, that's interesting.
Anunnaki puppet show relates to the Anunnaki, which I mentioned however many tiers ago, which were the supposed alien gods of the Babylonians and the Sumerians. See, the Sumerians, as I mentioned before with things like the Dogon tribe, had very weird things when it came to their religion and beliefs. Like, for example, they had very accurate tracings of our constellations and our solar system. And as mentioned before, they had these idols of beings that they said came from the stars and taught them science and agriculture and things like that. The Babylonians were very similar. As a matter of fact, some believe the Old Testament translations that were mentioned of these Babylonians whenever they would talk about the angels coming down or God coming down was actually just a version of these Anunnaki. So much so that people say the Tower of Babel, in which, according to the Bible, God confused their languages, was actually a space station they were building to go to the stars, to which the Anunnaki then confused their languages. So, yeah. The puppet show belief is that the reason the Anunnaki have done all this is simply for entertainment, and that watching us progress as a society has been this whole escapade that they get a watch from a distance. However, I like the other theory proposed by it. See, several of these Anunnaki images
that's what I thought when I heard Anunnaki puppet show, but
things we see, although normally reptilian, seem kind of human. The belief being that sometime in the future, we will develop a time travel technology, or at least a different reality version of us will. So then from the future, we come to the past, we alter things that happen in the course of human history for whatever reason in the Sumerian and Babylonian Empire, and then watch how it plays out. So rather than just a puppet show for entertainment, perhaps this existence that we have and all of our human history is just an experiment for whatever our future selves needed to find out. And furthermore, perhaps issues that we've seen in science, such as not being able to understand time travel or understand how gravity or perpetual travel or something like that works, is these observers of our timeline purposefully manipulating it so that we don't get too far out of our box. And that is it for part 1 of tier 7. Thank you all for watching. Like I said, they keep getting more complex and deep going from here, so hopefully you want to continue to stick around, because oh boy, in all honesty though, thank you guys for watching. The original link to this iceberg image will be in the description as always. Also, the link to the Wendigoon subreddit will be down there, which is over 1,000 followers now. Thank you all so much. Again, thank you Toker490 so much for making that. It means the most. So that will be in the description if you're interested. Also, I finally started using Twitter, so my Twitter will be in the description as well. I do want to say though, thank you all so much for watching.
I got stuck just listening to him and thinking about ideas for stuff, but there we go, guys.
Thank you so much to my subscribers. You all mean the most. All 60.
He's just gonna go through the end of his stuff, but big shout out to Wendigoon. Shout out to all of you who have been watching my journey and enjoying what I have to add to these videos. I love you guys. Much love in Moonlight, and I think I will just get out of here and see you in the next one, and enjoy this super duper long episode. And we will get to part 7, 1 of or 2 of 3, maybe tomorrow. Let's see. Peace.